Hello there, I'm Amira David. This is Boom Bust, and these are the stories we are tracking for you today. German lawmakers have cleared the way for Greece's third bailout. I'll tell you what the German finance minister had to say that may have helped seal the deal coming right up. Then Lars Christensen is on the show. I'll talk to him about the Euro system and why he's calling it a growth-killing machine. His words, not mine. You don't want to miss that. Plus, in today's Big Deal, Ed Harrison and I are going to continue the conversation on Greece. We'll take a look at that potential vote of confidence for Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras. If he's forced to resign, could that shake up the bailout deal? We'll answer that and so much more on today's show. Don't go anywhere. Boom Bust starts right now. Greece's new €86 billion bailout plan gets the green light. On Wednesday, the package won overwhelming approval from German lawmakers after a 3-hour debate. Their finance minister, Wolfgang Schäuble, someone who actually led the European opposition to Greece's demands for softer reforms, tried to convince Parliament to allow Athens the chance to rebuild.
In fact, the Greek government has made positive and fundamental changes in the last weeks, and it therefore would be irresponsible to not use this opportunity for a new beginning in Greece. One thing I can say is I, no less than any other, have had to struggle with this decision, and because it is so, I ask you all with full confidence to vote for this amendment for the Finance Ministry.
And the vote did swing in Schäuble's favor. 453 lawmakers voted in favor of the measures, 113 against, and 18 abstained. And it's important to note that the bailout package passed by a pretty wide margin. Now, that's despite the fact that many had predicted there would be a surge in dissent by members of Chancellor Angela Merkel's own party. It seems that the revolt against her leadership failed to really materialize. However, Merkel did face considerable skepticism from several influential conservatives who are concerned with the lack of formal commitment so far from the International Monetary Fund to share the burden of the debt. Now, the IMF has called Greece's debt level unsustainable and says the country requires debt relief well beyond what has been considered so far. And the organization says it will wait until October to make its decision on whether to participate in the bailout deal as is. But German officials have confidence that the IMF will come through. In the meantime, Greece will now be able to access the cash it really needs to keep the country from defaulting on its debts. And that money will come into use on Thursday as Greece pays out the 3.2 billion euros that it owes to the European Central Bank. To discuss the euro as a currency zone, Lars Christensen is on the show. He's the founder and owner of Markets and Money Advisory. He is also a senior fellow at London's Adam Smith Institute. In a blog post, Lars wrote that unemployment in the Eurozone would have been much lower in countries that had floating exchange rates across Europe instead of what he said the euro actually has been, a monetary strangulation mechanism. So I first asked him about that mechanism and to tell me about what that entails. Here's what he had to say.
Well, I think at the core of the problem for the Eurozone is that we're trying to have one monetary policy for very, very diverse countries. Countries like Latvia, Greece, Spain, on the one hand, then Finland also doing badly, and then you have countries doing relatively well, Belgium, for example, and particularly Germany. So some countries would maybe need monetary tightening, others would need monetary easing, and we can't have all of that. And as a result, we're now seeing a strangulation of the weaker countries.
And you said that the euro is a growth-killing machine. What are the possible reasons for why that's the case? Why is the euro such a growth-killing machine?
Well, there are two reasons. First of all, as I mentioned, we're trying to have one monetary policy for all. And that can't do. So either we have too easy monetary policy for some or too tight monetary policy. Ahead of 2008, we had clearly had too easy monetary policy for countries like Spain or Portugal, and maybe about right monetary policy for the US, for Germany. And now we had the opposite. The other thing is the rate hikes that the ECB has implemented on very, very badly timed. The ECB, just a few months ahead of Lehman Brothers' collapse in October 2008, hiked interest rates as the European economy clearly was slowing down dramatically. And then again repeated that mistake twice in 2011 by hiking interest rates, while the Federal Reserve at the right time, at the similar time, did quantitative easing. And we can see the difference in the performance of Europe versus the US in that period. So there are two reasons. One size do not fit all, and two, the ECB had far too tight monetary policy all through this crisis.
Now, you've actually done a cross-comparison analysis to come to the conclusions that you're telling me about here. But tell me more about those specific comparisons and what you found as a result.
Yeah, what I did a number of things. One of the arguments I had was let's look at how floating exchange rate countries have done during this crisis since 2008 and compare that with countries in the euro area and countries pegged to the euro, such as Denmark or Bulgaria. And I looked at 31 European countries, 10 of which were floating exchange rate, countries like Sweden, the UK, Turkey. And consistently, all of the floating exchange rate countries have had positive growth since 2007. So they're, you can say, out of the crisis again, while nearly half of all the countries in the euro area or pegged to the euro actually have lower GDP today than in 2007. I'm not saying that it's permanently going to be like that. I'm just saying that monetary policy in the Eurozone clearly has worked so in the past nearly 8 years, so to killing growth.
Right.
And as a result, the debt problems in Europe has escalated because when you have no growth, you have terrible public finance, then you have sharp in public debt, and that's exactly what we've seen. While in the floating exchange rate countries, debt has come under control again.
Now, just to be clear, are you saying that the larger problem is a fixed rate issue, or is this completely Euro-specific?
Well, I think in general, there's no doubt that I'm very inspired by Milton Friedman on this, and Milton Friedman always argued against pegged exchange rate. I always thought pegged exchange rate was a rather foolish idea. Obviously, if you are pegging yourself against a country that's completely similar to your own country, and they're conducting monetary policy in a good way, then it's fine. But the point is here, the ECB has not conducted monetary policy in a good way, one, and two, the countries in the Eurozone do not need the same monetary policy, all of them. It's a version of the pegged exchange rate. You can say there's really only one floating currency in the Eurozone, and that is the German euro or the German mark. Monetary policy in general has been conducted for the needs of the German economy, both prior to the crisis and after the start of the crisis. So Germany is really the only country in the euro area you can talk about having a floating exchange rate. Rest quasi-pegged exchange rate within the euro system.
Right. Well, you specifically took a look, I noticed, at the years between 2007 and 2015. So that's essentially from the financial crisis on. Why did you do that? Is that because, to you, that time period, how an exchange rate system functions in crisis, for example, is what matters most? Exactly.
What I wanted to look at is how is the individual countries able to absorb shocks? If there are no shocks, you would see pegged exchange rate countries or euro countries doing relatively well, very much as Britain or Sweden with floating exchange rate have done. But how would they perform under stress? And this is really the key thing. Ahead of 2008, there were no real major shocks to the European economy, and monetary policy in general, I would say, was conducted in a fairly good fashion. After then, starting in 2008, everything gone badly wrong. So you can say it's a stress test of the system we have seen, and it has failed.
Right. Well, if you do look at the data from econ blogger Tim Lee, who's with Vox, and you actually mentioned this in your blog, it goes back further to 2000, the year 2000, and the evidence there shows that the 12 worst performing countries do support your claim. But that being said, if you look at the top 12 performing countries, the majority of them, about 7 out of 12 of them, are also pegged to the euro. So why do you think that is?
Well, I think that the point is here, my point is really not, I'm not trying to say something about a 10 or 15 or 20 year perspective, because on that perspective, monetary policy becomes less important. What we really ought to look at in that perspective is how volatile GDP has been. And there you would see a different picture. What we saw ahead of 2008 was actually countries like Spain or Greece growing very fast because they had too easy monetary policy, because monetary policy also at that time was conducted for the needs of Germany that at that time had weak growth. So monetary policy in Europe was easy to accommodate the German economy. As a result, the Greek and the Spanish economy, the Irish economies overheated. So my argument here is not one of specifically that it will always create lower growth, rather than it will be extremely bad at handling external and what economists call asymmetrical shocks. And that's exactly what we're seeing.
I'm not sure if you've given any thought to the fact that many of those top performing countries are actually from the Eastern Bloc. I mean, why do you think that's the case?
Well, obviously, take the Baltic countries, for example, has been growing very, very strongly until 2008, where they were hit by crisis. These are countries that have undergone tremendous economic reforms, gaining independence from the Soviet Union, undertaking very, very swift liberalization and very good reforms of their economies. And obviously, that has been positive.